Welcome to the IonaHoops.com podcast with your host, Guy Flatico.
Hey gang, it's season 3, episode 30 of the IonaHoops.com podcast. I don't know about you, but I'm obsessed with the portal. Yeah, I know, I have issues, but we knew that already, didn't we? Anyway, lots to tell you about again as our roster continues to take shape, and we'll also welcome in a couple more guests to take a deeper dive into a couple of our earlier commitments later in this episode. Like I said, though, I have issues, but I also have the Iona Iotas.
Iotas.
It appears we've found our starting small forward. Welcome Greg Gordon to the Gaels. Gordon is in that 6'5" neighborhood and averaged 23 points and 11 boards in earning second-team JUCO All-American honors at Dyersburg State. Gordon made 55% of his field goals this past season as a true slasher and athlete. Not much of a shooter from three or the line, but he's clearly a weapon who produces on the offensive end, and he hits that glass hard. Sounds like he's going to be a fun player to watch. Again, welcome, Greg, to Gael Nation.
Iotas.
It appears we found our small forward. Wait, what? Didn't I just say that about Gordon? Well, it's nice to have options, and we really do now, as Iona gets a commit from 6'6" wing Terrell Williams Jr., a transfer from Southern. Williams was the SWAC Rookie of the Year in 2021. He averages 9 points, 4 rebounds per game for his career, with a career three-point field goal percentage of 36%. He started 68 games, and yet he has 2 years of eligibility remaining. So here's an experienced wing who can also defend, by the way. Hey, Tobin's going to want to go a good 10 deep, so to have this guy and Gordon at the three is pretty solid for sure. Welcome to Gael Nation, Terrell.
Iotas.
It appears we found our small forward. No, I'm just kidding. But we're not done portaling around here. How about point guard Joel Brown from Cal transferring into the program? This is the experienced, pure point guard we were looking for. The 6'3" Brown just completed his senior season at Cal. Not flashy scoring-wise, 7 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 41% shooting. But how about a tremendous assist-to-turnover ratio for his career, 342 assists versus 211 turnovers. And that's for a Cal team that has not been great in the past few years, let's face it. And in the Pac-10, of course. So now he's got the keys to Tobin's freewheeling offense and quite a few impressive weapons starting to build up around him. Seems like an excellent fit for the Gaels and for Joel. And we welcome you to Gael Nation.
Iotas.
With our head coach off to the Big East, Iona wasted no time in filling the role with the FDU coach. No, I'm not talking about Tobin replacing the coach who shall not be named. I'm talking Billy Chambers being replaced by Angelica Sumillo, the 8th women's coach in our program's history. Sumillo comes to Iona after a great 4-year run at FDU that started in 2019-20 when she took the Knights from 8-22 the year prior to arrival to a 500 record in league play in the program's first NEC tourney victory since 1992, and then followed that up by winning back-to-back NEC regular season championships and earning WNIT bids in 2021-22 and this past season. FDU just had its best season ever, leading the entire nation in three-point percentage defense and finishing 7th in Division I in scoring defense. The Knights finished the season with a 24-8 overall record, a 14-2 mark in conference play. Overall at FDU, Zamillo compiled a 72-45 overall record and a 50-20 mark in league play. She leaves FDU as the second winningest coach in program history. Welcome to Iona, Coach Zamillo. All right, let's hit our podcast transfer tracker, Your Portal. Well, as you can tell from the Iotas, Iona was awfully busy in the portal, getting some brand new recruits. So you can tell we've been pretty busy. And we've got a few other names in addition to those that we actually got commitments from. So I'm going to give you a few more that, again, they're add-ons from the list since the last podcast episode. 6'8", sophomore forward Jarrett Hensley from Cincinnati, 2 points, 1 rebound, 47% field goal percentage. 6'2", junior guard Michael O'Connell from Stanford, 5.2 points, 2.5 boards, 3.1 assists, 30% three-point field goal shooting, 78% from the line. 6'3", freshman guard Chendall Weaver from UTA. He was the WAC Rookie of the Year, 9.5 points, 4.6 boards, 2 assists, 40% from 3. 6'4" grad student guard Kyle Feit, or Feet, F-E-I-T, from New Mexico State, 5 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist, 32% from 3. 6'10" senior forward Parker Braun from Santa Clara, 7.7 points, 5.8 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block, 55% field goal shooting. 6'9" senior forward Cam Kraskowiak from Dartmouth, 5 points, 3 rebounds, 50% field goal, 42% three-point field goal, and he is visiting later this week, so he's one to keep an eye on. So that's it from the portal. And hey now, we bring back the offer roundup this episode.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
We start with a class of 2025. Jack Bailey is a 6'10", small forward, power forward out of Blair Academy. New York City native, AAU Riverside Hawks, ranked as the 5th best player in his class in New Jersey. He's got offers from Georgia Tech, Monmouth, Fordham, Rhode Island, Manhattan, St. Bonaventure, Bryant, Robert Morris, FDU, and Albany. So it looks like a fun player. Let's keep an eye on how that goes. We also have a more recent offer to class of 2023, Sultan Adewale, 6'8" forward out of Newman Goretti High School, 15 points, 10 rebounds, offers from ASU, Clemson, DePaul, GW, Georgia Tech, Memphis, OSU, Ole Miss, Rutgers, Oral Roberts, Washington, and West Virginia, among others. He's reportedly revisited Iona on Friday the 28th. And most recently, Iona offered Brendan Benjamin, a class of 2024 6'8" forward out of Bergen Catholic. Tough physical forward with a 7'2" wingspan. He can run the floor, and he has offers from GW, Fordham, Fairfield, and Albany. Someone to keep an eye on. 2 of Iona's first commits under Tobin Anderson were Harvard transfer Idan Tritu and freshman Gene Aranguren. We now bring in a couple guests to the pod who can give us a scout of these 2 players. We'll start with David Tannewald, a writer from Harvard Magazine who saw a ton of Tritu and the Crimson this past season. And then we'll go to Peter King, coach of Springfield Commonwealth Academy, Aranguren's high school team. Let's bring in the guests. David Tannewald wrote often about Crimson Hoops for Harvard Magazine, which means he saw plenty of Idan Tritu, and he joins us now to give us a little bit of a scout on him now. David, thanks for coming on the podcast for us.
Thanks for having me.
So Tritu is not a total mystery for Iona fans. We did see him put up 9 points and 3 rebounds in 20 minutes during the 2021-22 season at the Heinz Center as Iona outlasted the Crimson 90-87 in a really fun overtime game. Now, of course, Chris Letham went nuts. Noah Kirkwood went nuts. Iona fans will probably remember that. So Iona, but the fans probably didn't pay much attention to Tritu. But hey, that was early in 2021-22. So it's that whole season took place, and now we've been through the 2022-23 season. How has his game evolved during that time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think in some ways, Idan's experience was a microcosm of what a lot of the Harvard team has gone through over the last few years. So they had missed the season before that game because of COVID,
right?
And had a bunch of guys get injured during the year that they played Iona, and Idan was one of them. So, I think he started the 13 games he played in, then got injured, and I think that, along with the COVID pandemic, was really disruptive. And also, like, Harvard's entire front court got injured that year.
Yes.
And I think Idan sort of had this interesting inflection point in the first half of this season as well. So he started the first 2 games and then started coming off the bench after that, and then was reinserted in the starting lineup early in conference play and really played well down the stretch. I think he was 11th in the league in scoring in conference play and ranked in the top 20 in just about every statistical category that was significant. So I don't know if there was a change in his game per se, but I think there was this amazing ability to navigate adversity, which I realize is a little bit cliche, but from the pandemic to injuries to kind of falling out of the rotation, but then finishing his career really strong. That's probably what stands out most to me about his evolution. Just like he really kept plugging away at it.
So look, he's got a lot of versatility in his game. Looks like he can play a little bit of one if he had to. He seems to be a natural fit at the two, big enough to play the three in certain situations. Does he have a comfort zone in your mind?
Yeah. So my image of Edon is this amazing ability to finish near the basket. So, just crazy shots off the glass, finishing through contact, and that's either in the half court or off of the fast break. And he's just really, really good at kind of controlling his sort of motion in those settings. And so I think, like you were saying, that can lend itself to several different positions. But it also really opens up the game for him and his teammates because he can do different things there as well, right? So he might draw defenders and then dish off in the paint, which he often did to Chris Ledlum, who you mentioned, and some of the other post players. But he can pull up, he can shoot from three, good at finding people, good at creating his own shot. He's a really dynamic guard, in my opinion. Yeah.
Mm. Okay. And we talked about the way his minutes and his production increased as the season progressed this year. Um, I, I mean, do you think he, in a way, again, I know you said it was overcoming adversity, quote unquote. You think there's just maturity there? Do you think there was a point of, hey, this is it? It's now or never. I'm just going to let it all hang out.
It's a good question. I'm thinking about it. I imagine with every senior, there is a sense of urgency that comes, so that might have played into it. And at the same time, I honestly think this is a quality I've admired about Edon for a long time now. So, going back to his freshman year, he was on a really stacked team. So that 2019, 2020 Harvard team had, I think, 7 seniors, and I want to say they were the top 10, 10th recruiting class in the country coming out of high school, and certainly dealt with some injuries. But Edon, if you just look at the depth chart at the start of that season, was behind guys like Bryce Aiken and Christian Juzang and Rio Haskett and Noah Kirkwood, who you mentioned. And I was looking back at the stats from that year, and he ended up scoring in double digits in the last 2 games and was given the team's most improved player award at the year-end banquet. And for him to accomplish that as a first year, I think really speaks volumes about him. In terms of what happened this season, as I mentioned, Harvard really had a lot of disruptions the past couple years, and I think that even translated into the rotation this year. So as I mentioned, Edon went down with an injury halfway through his junior year. Evan Nelson, who started at point guard for most of this season, ended up playing the second half of last season. And then he came into the starting lineup after the second game. And so in some ways it might have been roles coalescing, who's going to bring the ball up, who's going to play off the ball. But yeah, I think there is probably something to what you said, which is, when a senior, you're kind of remembered for how you finish. I think it's something that Tommy Amaker talks about sometimes. And I never asked Edon about this, but it wouldn't shock me if that shaped his thinking in some way down the stretch. Yeah.
So, coming to a team like Iona that basically started from scratch.
Yeah.
So he came out of the portal pretty quickly, and we'll get to his recruitment in a second. But he joined a team that was really at the time we got a couple freshmen that Tobin had picked up, and one holdover from this past year's Iona team. So he's coming into a situation where maybe his role wasn't clearly defined, but there was a chance for him to be more in the spotlight. Do you think that's kind of drew him to Iona here?
It wouldn't shock me if that's the case. And I should be honest, I don't know kind of what went into his decision. I haven't seen him since the end of the season or that sort of thing. I imagine part of the draw was playing in New York. As someone
Yes.
who's from New York,
Yep.
that's kind of how he posted on social media.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and I think, even like if you look at the way he played at Fordham this year, at Columbia, he played well. So that might have been part of it. But yeah, I would think the chance, as you sort of said, and obviously, I don't know a ton about the Iona roster. If there's a chance for him to kind of be a key contributor. I could see that being a big draw for him,
Mm.
the chance to play in New York. And I think, to play for someone, um, like the coach who just obviously has been in the national spotlight, I would think there's some enthusiasm and excitement surrounding that. And obviously Iona is a team that's had success recently. So I could see all those things coming together to make him really enthusiastic about it.
Mm. So he did get some higher level interest. I know Iowa State was snooping around a couple of A10
Yeah,
programs. And yet, again, I think, like you said, maybe it could just be the opportunity to play at a successful mid like Iona, close to home. I'm surprised maybe Fordham wasn't more on his radar. But
interesting. Yeah.
um, so yeah, we're thrilled to have him, and I do think certainly the opportunity is there to be one of the leaders of the team. Not being in a situation where he's going to be deferring to somebody else. And I'm not saying that he was necessarily deferring, but when you have a talent like Noah Kirkwood and then certainly Chris Ledlum, it's easy to say, well, I'm the second option, I'm the third option, or whatever you might be. So he might. This could be a situation where it might just be perfect for him, where hey, this is my chance, and he's going to go out and average 15, 16, 17 a game. Who knows? Who knows, right? Would that surprise you? I
Yeah,
guess is a question for you.
that's a great question, So, and so yeah, so I guess to kind of peel back the layers that I think kind of rightly identified, when you had Chris and Noah, two first team All Ivy caliber players, right? A guy like Edon, yeah, he probably is facilitating for them a little bit more. And with Chris in particular, I think in part because they've played together for a long time and known each other for a long time, right? Going back to New York, they actually played really well off of each other. Like the best play of the season in some ways was like he dawned through this baseball pass, and Chris used to play football. He was a wide receiver, like catches it with one hand, saves it going out of bounds, and then Harvard gets a dunk and that sort of thing.
Mm.
But yeah, I could also see like Edon is a very, very talented scorer. As I mentioned earlier, he can hit the pull up. He's got the three. I think he was almost 40% in league play. And in some ways, the most impressive aspect of his game is the ability to finish in the paint. So yeah, if he kind of has the chance to be the focal point on the roster, I could imagine that being something that he would be really enthusiastic about for sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
Why will Iona fans love him?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So, one thing I do, as I mentioned, sense there is that enthusiasm about playing in New York, and even going back to, so I know he played for the New Heights program in the city, which before I became a writer, I actually worked for it. So I kind of like felt a little bit of a connection to him through that, and I think there is a sense of just passion and enthusiasm that comes with that. So that's one piece of it. Second, as I mentioned, his offensive skill set is pretty comprehensive. And you don't play for Tommy Amaker if you don't play defense, right? And so he can definitely apply pressure on opposing guards. And, there's kind of a fitness level there that I think, it can kind of be like defense turning into offense. And the final thing I'll say, which I realize is a little bit cliche maybe, but I think is really true, is he's a really smart guy.
Mm.
Like he won the team's academic excellence award. He was on the All Ivy academic team. I think there was another recognition he received academically as well. So, there's the intensity, there's the passion, there's the skill, but there's also the kind of just cerebral quality that's going to make him a really good player. And, based on what you described, like I could see him just being a wonderful leader for the team as well as one of
Mm.
the older veteran guys.
Mm. All right. Well, David, that was really, really helpful for us and very insightful. We every time we pick up a recruit, all Iona fans are digging online, trying to find some highlight clips and things like that, but they don't tell the story, which is why I like to have these types of podcasts where we welcome somebody like you who has some expertise and a player that we're bringing in. So I really appreciate you coming on. And guess what? We're going to get to see you during next season. It sounds like, because I believe Iona is going to be playing at Harvard this year. So we'll all come up and harass you if you turn out to be wrong. No, I'm kidding. No, we're excited to see Don play, and we appreciate you coming on. And we'll see you up there this year.
Yeah, no, for sure. Looking forward to that. Thanks for having me. And I'll be rooting for Edon and Iona, and looking forward to that game for sure. Yeah, so that
Absolutely.
all sounds great.
Sounds great. Thank you for coming on again.
Thanks for having me.
Peter King is the head coach of Springfield Commonwealth Academy basketball team, where he no doubt had a hand in the development of Gene Aranguren's overall game. And he joins us now to educate us on what we can expect from him. Coach, thanks for joining the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure.
So in scouting reports we've seen online, Iona fans, of course, digging up every little bit we can find about players as soon as we land somebody. I've seen words like relentless, tough as nails. Are these fair words to describe them?
Yeah, 100%. I think, in terms of tough, he's just a guy that he just wants to win and he'll do whatever it takes. As a combo guard, a guy that can impact the game defensively, that can impact it, rebounding the ball, even like setting great screens, like all those little things. Like he just excels at all of them: communication, leadership, and he just has no back down in him whatsoever. Like, for example, we played Putnam Science Academy and won the national championship, had him on the brink. He was guarding Mohamed Diabate, who's a power forward committed to Alabama. 6'7", broad shoulders, strong kid. Gene's in there banging with him like it's nothing. Like he's relentless, as you said, like tough as nails. I think those are perfect words to describe him. Yeah, 100%.
One thing we hadn't really seen much of, you actually used the word combo guard there. Can he play the point?
Yeah, so for us, he almost exclusively played the point guard position. We had a guard off the bench who would come in and play some lead guard, and we'd push Gene off ball. But yeah, 100%. I think, some of his strengths actually lie in his ability to run an offense, to navigate an offense. He's fantastic in transition. As that guard who can get the ball, he throws it ahead, he finds his teammate. Again, just that impact winning, he makes guys better. And that's, with his play and also the leadership quality that I talked about. Like he pushes guys, and he puts guys in positions to be successful.
So it looks like he's got a really well-rounded game from the clips and from what you're saying. And on top of that, he seems to have a college-ready body too. Which no doubt is why he got the interest he did from more than a few D1 programs. Can you talk about what you know about his recruitment leading up to when he committed to Tobin at FDU?
Yes. Yeah. So he had a lot of low D1 interest. I know he was picking up more, in the spring and summer last year, and then he hurt his knee, was out, for some of the live period stuff, which hurt him a little bit. I know he had, FDU was big on him. Honestly, Tobin had been recruiting him for a couple of years. He was recruiting him when he was at the D2 level, when Gene was a little bit younger. And really, he built that relationship. I know he's close with, one of our coaches, Coach Sanchez, who's been with Gene, longer than I've been. He was with him at Upper Room Christian in Long Island before Gene came to Springfield. And, I think he built that relationship. And he said from jump to Gene, like, I believe in you. And then when he made that jump to FDU is, I'll recruit you wherever I'm at. I don't care if I get a job at Kentucky, you're my guy, was, I think, a direct quote. So, when you got that job at Iona, I think that relationship and that trust and that belief that Tobin showed in him was really the deciding factor. And I think, Tobin obviously did a great job at FDU. Yeah. I'm liking some of the stuff he's been doing in the recruiting class so far. I know he got, I've been following the same stuff too. So Monty Gordon yesterday was a good one.
Yeah.
So I think, again, those relationships that he builds seem very genuine and sincere. And I think that's what drove Gene to commit to FDU and then, follow him to Iona.
So we know you have a little bias here, but I'm going to ask this anyway, with regarding Gene. Okay. So again, FDU is NEC, MAC is maybe a tick above that. Do you feel like he could have even gone higher?
Yeah, I've said it all along. And my brother, he's a college basketball coach. Me and him talk about this all the time. Like, I think Gene has the type of game where he can really play at any level almost because of his ability, as I said, to do those little things. And for us, he was a stud. He was a scorer. He was a playmaker. He did all those things. But his ability to impact the game in all those other ways, he was our best on-ball defender, our best rotational defender. He has the ability to create havoc and be aggressive while still sticking to a scheme and not over pursuing, which, for a high school kid is a rare quality. I mean, a really special quality. So I think those things, that toughness, that grit, um, can really carry him to a lot of levels. And then, I said all along, I think FDU's got a steal. I think he's going to be a stud there. And I think the same rings true at Iona. I think he's going to have a very good career there. And I think they're going to be happy to get a kid like Gene.
So I'm not sure, you said you've been following the recruiting since Gene committed. I don't know how much you followed Iona previously. One of my favorite all-time Gaels just finished at the program there. His name is Barrick Jean-Louis. He's a wing, but defensive player of the year. Again, relentless, tough as nails, same kind of characteristics, same words. We kind of see him, Iona fans, as one of the great warriors in the program history. I don't know why, and I'm certainly not going to try to draw a comparison because they are different positions. I just get the vibe this kid's a warrior. Am I right?
100%. And I think that goes, beyond basketball. Like, I'm just impressed being around him. I felt honored to be, you meet kids and you're like, I'm happy that kid's in my life. I learned from him the same way. Hopefully they learn from you as a coach. And he's that type of kid. Like, he's had a lot of adversity. He came over from Venezuela as a young kid. That comes with a lot of adversity, some of the personal stuff he's dealt with. And no matter what gets thrown his way, he's in the gym working his ass off and, outworking everybody. And honestly, like, pretty much every time I was in the gym, Gene was there. In a full sweat, going hard. Gene could be having the worst day of his life, the best day of his life. And, if we're running sprints, he's winning them. Like, it doesn't matter. Nothing phases his work ethic. And nobody's going to beat him to a loose ball. Nobody's going to, go harder for a rebound. And that's the kind of stuff that, I think, you're kind of talking about, that warrior mentality. And, it's something that honestly, like, that's what made me fall in love with this game. And to get to be around that special and then to get to watch him grow and develop. And honestly, I can't wait to be a Iona fan now. I've been a Duke fan since I was a kid, so I've been blessed, with some success, but I can't wait to be a Iona fan and see where he takes it and just watch him continue to work, because I know that won't stop.
Well, as a freshman, no doubt his game is going to continue to develop. And he'll need to continue to develop to be an impactful player on this level. What parts of his game do you think are ready for the college game, and which parts probably still need to be worked on to get up to that level?
Yeah, so I think 100% he's a Division I college ready defender. As you said, he's got the college ready body. He's 6'3", really long arms, strong as hell. As I said, he's versatile defensively. He guarded a lot of lead guards, scholarship guards for us. We were undersized, so sometimes he had to go bang down low with, some really big, strong dudes. And as I said, his ability to be aggressive while being, locked into rotations and stuck into the scheme is special. I think his playmaking, he's not a flash. He's not one of those guys that he's not Steve Nash throwing behind the back passes but he just makes the right play a lot. His basketball IQ is high level. So I think that's college ready. And I think, he's a good shooter. I think for him to have the type of success that I see him having, he needs to just get a little bit more consistent with it. I think because he's always been so strong and such a great finisher around the rim and that playmaker, that sometimes he's he doesn't shy away from three. I mean, he hit 8-9 threes in several games for us. So he's definitely a very good shooter, but just he hasn't relied on it always throughout his life. So I think just building that consistency and that confidence that, to be a catch and shoot guy, because off the dribble, he's very confident. As a spot up shooter, which, gotta be able to do that at the next level, especially as an off guard. Just developing that consistency and the confidence to be a catch and shoot knockdown, sniper from the outside will definitely be big for him.
Okay. And I kind of alluded this to a bit earlier about being a warrior, and maybe this is the answer to the question I'm about to ask you, because I always like to ask this question. Why will Iona fans love him?
Yeah, so I think that warrior, as you that warrior mentality and the work ethic. I think it's just the work ethic. And that's a lot of it happens when nobody's there. Like that's what made me fall in love with him. Is like I'm in the gym. I don't expect anybody in the gym. He's there. At practice, don't take days off. Go hard. And especially like at the prep level, there's a lot of stress which comes with the recruiting process and that final year and the clock's ticking. We were a high level program and trying to compete on that national stage. And, you knew he was stressed sometimes about making the right decision for his future, but it never held him back. Nothing holds him back. And I think that's and no opponent will hold him back from being himself. No adversity will hold him back. That he's going to fight and claw to be that impactful winning player. And I think that's what'll make everybody the type of fan of him that I am. And I can't wait to watch him battle for rebounds with 7-footers at the next level like he did with us.
Well, that's awesome, Coach. This has been really insightful, and I really appreciate you coming on. I learned a lot about him this call. You learn so much from reading numbers or seeing a couple of highlight clips online. So this was really helpful for us, and I really appreciate you coming on. And we'll catch up again down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it, my man.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks again to David Tannenwald and Peter King for joining us here on the pod. We're slowly getting there, folks. Still a few roster spots to fill. We're going to keep you updated and up to speed on all new Gaels here on the pod. So stick around and go Gaels.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the IonaHoops.com podcast. This podcast is a production of IonaHoops.com with publisher Guy Filatico. The opinions shared during this podcast are those of Guy Filatico, IonaHoops.com, and any featured guests. This podcast is not affiliated with Iona University Athletics or the university itself. Thank you for supporting IonaHoops.com.